Welcome to my ramblings. This episode, I talk about three different functions of government. There's probably a lot more. I don't get into the courts and law enforcement and stuff. So this is mostly executive branch, but police and stuff typically fall under the executive branch. Police under the executive branch of local county and state government, and the FBI under the federal government. But anyway, um, there. Let's start with the first one. The first one is regulatory. Congress legislates and through the lawmaking process says that okay, we've got the social public policy that we want to implement, and then they authorize the executive branch to come up with regulations um, to enact Congress's intent. That could be the EPA, it could be OSHA, um, and other things as well. Okay. Number two is services. The legislative process on local, state, federal level um, decides that they make a decision. They were elected to represent us. They represent us as a group. And in deciding what's best for the country and for our society, they come up with various social policies. Might be unemployment compensation. Uh, I don't want to say OSHA because I talked about that as regulatory. Um, so so basically, I call it services because you know they're interacting with the public and they're providing services. And so a lot of the stuff you hear over the years is about the interaction between those government agencies and customers, the emphasis on customer service, and that's kind of what drives this. Is you know, people have a right to be treated fairly and objectively when it comes to administration of these programs that were put into law. Okay, the third one is a little different. It's the government as a consumer, particularly the military. My entire career was spent within two departments. One was the Department of Defense, and the other was the Department of the Interior. I worked for the Department of the Interior mid-career. And when you run a large organization like the military, and I only worked in facilities, so I don't know much at all about how the rest of the military operates. But you know, you need lots of buildings, you need lots of products, um, you need supplies and stuff. So the government as a, acts as a consumer in a lot of cases. Um, they buy goods, they buy services. Some of these services are construction. The facilities branch of the military needs to provide the facilities, to house the military personnel, to provide office and workshops and spaces so that the military has a space to conduct its missions, its training, its day-to-day activities. And so one of those services is construction, government contracts for construction services. Um, it's kind of interesting because a lot of people, when they first start to work for the government, and I was probably the same way. I mean, I started as a student employee. I was still a civil servant. I was in a program that said, okay, they want to bring students in. So they have to maintain a grade point average. They can only work so many hours, but um, we don't have enough people interested in civil service. So they reach out to me when I was like an undergraduate. They didn't reach out to me personally. They had a recruiting some civil servants. I don't remember if there was a military guy there. They were trying to interest students in particular fields, studying in particular disciplines, to come work for the government. And this was an opportunity for people to go work as a student, and then the government makes, the supervisors can make a decision. The student employee makes the decision. Okay, do I want to continue on? Was your performance acceptable? And but so it's there's a lot to learn, but a lot of people that first come into the government, they don't realize that in facilities that the government is actually a consumer. So we're not providing services. We're not providing a service to a construction contractor. We're not providing a service to nuts and bolt supply. We're consuming. So we're actually the customer in that case. But that doesn't mean, that that we're mean and gnarly. It just means that, you know, we're not there to give away money to those people providing these goods and services to the government. The government has to be accountable. They have to look after their interests. And so there is some paperwork, it's public money, even though it's the military, it's still authorized and paid for by Congress. And as a consequence, we're accountable not directly to the American people, but to the American people throughout the chain of command and, through the congressional authorization of all of this stuff. Major projects, they're specifically funded by contracts. Base commanders, public works commanders, they have a pot of money that they directly administer. They have tons of projects, tons of needs, and they have to prioritize, where they're going to spend the money at. And, just like any major company, they have a budgeting process, and localized needs are pretty much taken, I guess, at the base commander, public works commander level. Anyway, so 3 aspects of government. We don't go into law enforcement and stuff like that. It's just kind of interesting because sometimes inexperienced people come from the outside, they don't realize that. And, well, they almost see us as like we're providing a service, and therefore, just give the contractors money, forget the requirements, forget accountability, waive a safety plan. Not that, the workers, forget about the workers. It's, we want to look after the contractors' bottom line for them. And it's not about the workers. It's about looking after the government's interests. When I was a student employee, I worked for a GM-13, and his counterpart was a lieutenant commander right out of the academy. He's a good guy. Yeah, we learned a lot about him. I'm going to cover it in the book. I don't know if I'll cover it in the ramblings, but we used to have bi-weekly meetings, and they'd bring up issues involved with administering a contract. Sometimes they're kind of on the legal side, sometimes contractual, which is still kind of a legal thing. There's strict, there's there's a lot of criteria for contracts, but contracts just don't magically appear. One of these things is that, in OSHA and how admirals and the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of the Navy, President all support the implementation of OSHA, particularly when it comes to facilities. And if we waive safety plans and stuff like that, then it creates a burden and a problem for the government. There may be some legal entanglement if the government just condones the contractor not acting in a safe manner. And so you're looking after the Navy's interest as well. I don't know how a legal fight would turn out, lawyers and judges and all of that. But so there was an emphasis back then making sure the contractor provides a safety plan. I started as a GS4 miscellaneous series, and there is a safety plan that I'm going to talk about. But anyway, that's another story. So 3 major functions of government in dealing with the public, excluding, of course, law enforcement, which I don't know any. I have you'll have to check out other ramblings, but whole different topic anyway, which I know nothing about and I don't ramble about. But just from my experience, thank you for tuning in. Appreciate the attendance.